Mom says people like you don't earn nice things, my nephew shouted, and the living room went bright with laughter that didn't belong to a home. Then, crack, my mother's watch shattered against the tile, the second hand spinning like a panicked eye. Silence after laughter is the loudest thing in the world. It makes you count every breath like a receipt. HY everyone, my name is Sable Heart. I don't post much. I don't cry much. I work, I pay, I show up. For 2 years I've kept my sister and her husband afloat. Rent, groceries, emergencies that always arrived the day before a sale. I told myself it was family. I told myself it was love. I told myself the watch on my wrist, my mother's last gift, would keep time honest. The watch lies in glittering pieces at my feet. Relax, my brother-in-law smirks from the couch, beer sweating in his hand. It's old. She can buy another. She's loaded. My sister tilts her head like she's deciding whether I'm a person or a vending machine. Maybe don't leave expensive things where kids can reach. The kid. Their kid. The one I tucked in, the one I read to. His smile is missing a front tooth and any trace of apology. My throat tastes like pennies. The room smells like buttered popcorn, fake butter, yesterday's joy reheated for today's audience. The TV murmurs with a game no one is watching. A floor fan ticks because something is jammed in its grate. My mother's photo on the mantle is the only thing looking directly at me. I'll pay you back, my sister says, flicking her wrist like she's swatting a fly. Next month. We're waiting on a transfer. A second lies, a minute lies, a year lies, time only tells the truth when it breaks. It wasn't an accident, the boy says, kicking a shard. Mom says you don't earn nice things. You just have them. His eyes glow, reflecting the pieces. Children repeat what they are fed. Monsters are made from kitchen tables and careless sentences. Pick it up, I whisper, but my voice comes out like a prayer you only say when the church is empty. No one moves. My brother-in-law's laugh returns, lighter this time, like I'm the punchline they've finally learned how to deliver. I kneel. The tile is cold. My palms hover above the glass. And that is when I feel it, something quieter than rage, steadier than grief. The exact second my generosity expires. The fan ticks once more. The second hand, freed from its face, stops at midnight. The second hand stilled at midnight, but in that room, I was the only one who noticed the time of death. I cupped the broken watch in my hands, the tiny gears cutting my skin, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't apologize. Not with words. Not with silence. I let the moment breathe, let the weight of their laughter hang, let it show me exactly who they were. Don't look so dramatic, my sister said, leaning back into the couch cushions like a queen on her throne. It's just a thing. You still have everything else. Everything else. 2 years of rent checks written in my name. Groceries charged to my card. Hospital bills covered because insurance lapsed. Vacations booked with money I pulled from savings while pretending I didn't care about beaches or sunsets. I had thought I was buying closeness. Buying family. Buying a place in their circle of approval. But standing there, watching her smirk while my nephew ground a heel against a piece of the strap, I realized I'd only purchased their contempt. My brother-in-law raised his beer in a mock toast. To our sponsor. Foam spilled onto his shirt, but he didn't notice, or didn't care. May her generosity never run dry. The boy giggled. My sister laughed along. None of them looked at me, really looked. Not as a woman. Not as a sister. Not as a human being still holding the last thing my mother touched. I felt a strange calm spread through me, like cold water over fire. This wasn't anger. Anger is noisy. This was quieter, sharper. I stood, closing my palm around the broken watch until glass bit skin. My sister's laughter dimmed when she saw the blood. For the first time all night, she shifted uncomfortably. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't plead. I simply walked to the door, the broken pieces hidden in my fist, and said, "Your funding just ran out." Behind me, silence landed heavier than the laughter had ever been. And outside, the night air smelled like freedom, metallic, bitter, inevitable. The door clicked behind me, and for a moment, I stood on the porch like a statue carved from ice. Their muffled voices leaked through the walls, confused, dismissive, already twisting my words into a joke. I knew the pattern. Tomorrow there would be texts, guilt-laced pleas, half-hearted promises. But tomorrow, I would not answer. The street was dark except for the glow of a single streetlight buzzing like a dying insect. My car waited at the curb, reliable and quiet, just like me. I slid inside and set the broken watch on the passenger seat. Its face stared at me, a fractured reflection of my own. Driving home, every passing sign felt sharper, every turn heavier. I replayed every favor I'd done: groceries on stormy nights, gas money slipped into their hands, tuition payments disguised as gifts. I remembered how they smiled when the transfer went through, how gratitude never lasted longer than the vibration of the phone confirming funds. 2 years of living like their safety net had turned me into something worse than invisible, expected. At a red light, I opened my palm. Blood had dried in thin lines where the glass cut me. The wound wasn't deep, but it stung, reminding me that even love, when twisted, leaves scars. I pressed the shards deeper into my skin, letting the sting keep me awake. By the time I reached my apartment, my decision had already rooted itself. I poured myself water, sat at the kitchen table, and laid out the broken watch piece by piece. Midnight glared back at me, frozen forever. I picked up my phone. A flood of unpaid receipts and transactions filled the screen: rent transfers, credit card payments, even the cable bill I covered when they complained the internet was too slow. I scrolled until my thumb ached. The proof of my silence glared brighter than any clock. And then, like slipping into a colder version of myself, I opened a new document on my laptop. Line by line, I began recording every cent, every sacrifice, every lie I had bankrolled. Not a budget. Not a diary. A record. My case against them had just begun. The spreadsheet grew like a spine of truth across my screen. Each row a vertebra, each number a memory. Rent, $1,800. Groceries, $245. Hospital bill, $3,200. Gas, vacations, birthday parties that weren't mine, all in neat black and white. When I totaled it, the number glided back like a verdict: over $78,000. That was the price of my silence. I stared at the sum until my reflection in the darkened laptop screen looked like someone I didn't know. My mother's watch sat beside the computer, fractured face catching the light. Midnight frozen. Her voice came back to me, soft but steady: "Things aren't love, Sable. Actions are." I shut the laptop and sat in the stillness of my apartment. The refrigerator hummed, a clock ticked faintly on the wall, and outside a siren wailed. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about how to rescue anyone else. I was thinking about me. The next morning, my phone lit up exactly as expected. A text from my sister: "We need to talk." He didn't mean it. "Don't overreact." A second one followed: "Rent's due. Can you help just this month? We'll catch up." I didn't reply. By noon, the calls began. Her voice shifted from sugar to steel, begging to berating. My brother-in-law left a voicemail laughing: "You think you can cut us off? You wouldn't dare." But I already had. Instead of answering, I drove to the bank. My accounts were linked to theirs for convenience. I sat with the banker, removed every access, every automatic draft, every fragile tie they had sunk into me. When the final signature dried, I felt lighter than I had in years. That evening, I mailed an envelope. Inside, a copy of the spreadsheet, a note with 4 words written in black ink: "Your sponsor has resigned." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. By the time the sun set, my phone buzzed with fury, my sister's rage spilling out in paragraphs. I set it face down on the counter, walked to the window, and watched the city lights blink like warnings. For once, their desperation wasn't mine to solve. By morning, their fury had shifted into panic. My phone lit up with a storm of messages, half threats, half pity pleas. "You can't just abandon family. We'll be homeless without you. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us." The irony almost made me laugh. All they'd done for me was drain me. I scrolled until one message stopped me cold. It was from my nephew, the same boy who shattered my mother's watch. Written in sloppy, childlike letters: "Mom says you're selfish. I hope you never come back." That cut deeper than glass ever could. A child parroting poison, their laughter echoing through him. My jaw tightened, but I didn't cry. I let the words harden into resolve. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the broken watch pieces spread out like evidence. My blood had dried on some of the glass, turning it rust brown. I placed the second hand, frozen at midnight, in the center of the pile. My mother's last gift, ruined in front of me, had become the clock that ended their free ride. But revenge, real revenge, couldn't just be walking away. Silence leaves room for revisionist stories. I knew them well enough to predict the new narrative: she abandoned us. She was cold. She was never really family. No. The truth would stand. The next week, I met with an attorney. I handed him the spreadsheet, receipts, and copies of every transfer. He raised an eyebrow, impressed and appalled all at once. "Do you want your money back?" he asked. I shook my head. "No. I want accountability. I want them to know the cost of treating someone like a wallet." He nodded slowly. "We can pursue a civil claim. At the very least, it will force them to face what they've taken." Walking out of that office, I carried nothing but my purse and the fractured watch hidden inside. Yet somehow, I felt heavier with purpose. Because the story was no longer theirs to tell. It was mine. And mine was only just beginning to sharpen. Courtrooms don't smell like justice. They smell like paper, stale coffee, and nerves. Still, when I walked in with my attorney, a file clutched in his hand, I felt like the air itself shifted. My sister and her husband sat across the aisle, dressed too sharply for people who claimed to be broke. Their eyes cut toward me, his narrowed, his smug. My nephew wasn't there. A small mercy. The judge skimmed through the documents, tapping a pen against the desk. 2 years of financial support, he muttered. And now you're seeking repayment. My lawyer answered for me, calm and precise: not repayment. Recognition. Proof. She was exploited. My sister leaned forward, voice dripping sugar. She offered to help. We never forced her. But I had learned the power of silence. I let the receipts speak. I let the spreadsheet breathe. Line after line, month after month, I had kept record even when I didn't realize I was preparing a case. The judge's expression hardened as he flipped pages. "This is extensive." He looked at them. "And you've contributed how much toward your own expenses in that time?" My brother-in-law smirked. "Family shares. Isn't that what family's for?" The words hung in the air like smoke. The judge scribbled something down, unimpressed. I didn't crave a dramatic explosion, no shouting match to crown my pain. Instead, I felt a steady pulse in my wrist where the watch used to sit. My mother's timepiece might have shattered, but in that sterile room, time itself finally seemed to align with me. When the session adjourned, my sister brushed past, hissing through her teeth, "You'll regret this." I met her glare, unblinking. No. I already regretted staying silent. Outside, the autumn air tasted sharper, freer. My attorney promised updates, but I barely heard him. What mattered wasn't the case's outcome anymore, it was that the story had been dragged into the light. And once truth breathes, it doesn't suffocate easily. Weeks blurred into hearings, paperwork, and whispered threats. Every time my phone lit up with another venomous message from my sister, I saved it. Every voicemail from my brother-in-law calling me ungrateful, every shallow apology laced with demands, I archived it all. Evidence wasn't just numbers anymore. It was words, tone, contempt preserved in digital ink. One night, scrolling through the folder I'd built, I landed on the photo of the shattered watch. Shards glittering on the tile, my nephew's shoe in the corner of the frame. My mother's voice filled the silence again. "Sable, remember, people show you their worth in how they treat what you love." They had shown me. Again and again. When the next hearing came, my attorney presented the folder. The judge didn't flinch at the photos of receipts, but his face hardened at the text messages. Words cut deeper than broken glass. He read aloud one of my sister's messages: "She'll cave. She always caves. She's nothing without us needing her." In that echoing courtroom, I almost smiled. Because that was the moment they condemned themselves. The judge ordered a repayment plan, symbolic more than financial. A fraction of what I'd lost. But money wasn't the verdict I needed. It was the acknowledgement. The stamp that said, exploited. Walking out, Reporters gathered at the steps. Not many, just enough to sting their pride. My sister shielded her face. My brother-in-law barked at the cameras. I walked past them quietly, broken watch in my pocket. The weight felt lighter now, not like grief, but like closure in disguise. That night, I returned home, sat at my table, and held the second hand of the watch between my fingers. Midnight, forever frozen. I whispered to the silence, "It ended the night you laughed." But endings aren't the same as justice. Because the true reckoning was still waiting. And it would not arrive in court documents. It would arrive in life itself, where reputation frays, where whispers spread, where masks finally slip. That was the stage I was preparing for. And I was no longer afraid of the spotlight. Justice didn't arrive with gavels or signatures. It arrived slowly, like cracks in ice. Weeks after the court order, their calls stopped. Not because they'd surrendered, but because the silence had begun to work louder than my voice ever could. My sister's friends whispered, about the hearings, about the messages read aloud, about the spectacle of two adults exposed as parasites. My inbox flooded with quiet acknowledgments from relatives who had once looked away. "We didn't know. We should have said something." I didn't reply. Some apologies don't deserve answers. But the real moment came on a Sunday morning. I stopped by a small antique repair shop downtown, the kind that smelled of cedar and old clocks. I handed the man a pouch. Inside, the pieces of my mother's watch. His weathered fingers turned them over carefully, eyes narrowing with focus. "Can it be fixed?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Not perfectly, but enough to remind you what it was meant to be." When I picked it up a week later, the face bore faint scars, the glass slightly uneven. But it ticked. Steady, faithful. Midnight no longer frozen. That night, I wore it as I sat on my balcony, city lights pulsing in the distance. My sister had posted a bitter rant online, painting herself the victim. I read it once, then closed the screen. Her words no longer had the power to pierce. People would believe what they wanted. But those who mattered knew the truth now. I touched the watch, felt its steady rhythm against my pulse, and realized, revenge hadn't been about shaming them. It was about reclaiming myself. They had taken my money, my trust, my silence. But they had not taken my will. 2 years of funding their lives ended the night laughter drowned my pain. And now, I wasn't the sponsor. I wasn't the scapegoat. I wasn't even their audience anymore. I was free. I whispered into the night, almost like a prayer, "Time belongs to me again." And for the first time in years, I believed it.